I'm Ivan Ferguson, that drywall guy. I want to talk a little bit about fastening drywall with screws. Notice I said screws because we're not going to use nails. I don't use nails at all, so I recommend just fastening drywall with screws. I'm going to go through all the little different options that you might have. This is the simplest. I just have a Phillips bit in a cordless drill. They're all Phillips screws, of course. Now this is just a bit in a drill. It's not magnetic, so the screw does not stay on there. So if I want to fasten drywall with this, I have to actually have one hand on the screw and get it started and fasten the drywall. Now with this type of drill, you actually need to push on the drywall a little bit because we want the drywall tight against the framing. So as I'm screwing it in, I'm actually pushing on the drywall to get a nice tight fit. That's a simple tool. It's not something I use. It's not something a professional would use. Only time I would use this is if I'm doing a walkthrough after all the drywall is fastened and I just want to check for screws that are out a little bit too far or that I need to remove. One step up from just a regular screw bit is a tool like this that has a Phillips screw bit and it has a little ring around the actual bit. Now once again, it is not magnetic, so the screw won't stay on. It will just fall off. So you need to bring it up to the surface. And set the screw. Now what this ring around the actual Phillips bit does is it pushes the drywall tight against the wall as it puts the screw in. And once the screw reaches the depth, it just slips out of the actual Phillips bit. What happens with this tool is the Phillips bit eventually gets dull. And now in order to properly set that screw, I need to put a little bit more pressure and I'll leave an actual ring in the drywall instead of just a dimpled screw. And that's a little more difficult to conceal. This is also a tool that the pros are not using. One bad thing about this tool is I can't remove that now because it's simply for setting a screw. A step up from that is a tool that actually turns a cordless drill into a screw gun as well, but this is more similar to what the pros are using. It's actually called a dimpler, and it has the ring around the screw bit, so when I fasten it, it pushes the drywall in. But this has a clutch in it, so once it reaches the proper depth, the screw just slips out and it doesn't dull the bit. So this is very nice. Another good feature of this is if I just twist this a little bit, I now have the screw tip extended out and I can remove screws with it. I can actually take this and remove a screw or put it in a little bit deeper if I needed to for any reason. So this is a tool that could be used by a professional. It's not something I would use if I was hanging a whole house, but it's probably something I would use if I was just doing a smaller job or on my walkthroughs before I start taping. This tool here is actually a drywall screw gun. It happens to be cordless. I love cordless tools. This is only for fastening drywall. It really can't be used for anything else. It's quite a rigid, quite a durable tool. It has the ring around the bit. This I have locked on right now. So when pressure is put against the bit, the motor comes on and the bit starts spinning. So when I put a screw in with this tool, as soon as I put pressure against the bit, it comes on and feeds it in really nice. This is a great tool. It puts it in nice and fast and the right depth. If this bit were to get a little bit dull, I can adjust this to set it a little bit deeper. One thing about this tool is I cannot remove a screw with it unless I were to pull this nose off. So those are the basic 4 different types of tools that you can fasten drywall with. Let me just talk briefly now about the proper fastening technique or depth for a screw. A screw should be set just below the surface, about 1 millimeter below the surface. That's deep enough so that the screw is not protruding past the plane of the drywall and it hasn't torn the paper. If it tears the paper, it's not as strong of an attachment. Of course, if it's protruding out, it's impossible to conceal. Now, on this particular stud, for example, I have the screw already in the bottom. My next screw will be 16 inches up, and then 32 inches up, and then the final screw will be along the top. By fastening across, I pull it in nice and tight. That's 2 screws in the middle of this wall, and 2 on the edges. So that's a total of 4. You don't need 5, you don't need 3. 2 is all you need to hold this drywall properly in place. So that's just a brief explanation of how to fasten drywall and different tools that I use.